Times Now's Mr. Harsh Shringla, Member of Parliament in the Rajya Sabha, former Foreign Secretary and extremely distinguished diplomat. Good morning, sir. And today it's an occasion to take stock of how India has handled its foreign policy over the last 12 years. While we often say that India has been recognized and accommodated on the high table of global diplomacy, do you look at it with as much satisfaction in the last 1.5 years? Because these 18 months have been extremely challenging for us.
Well, namaskar, Navika ji. And, as someone who has been a practitioner of diplomacy for almost 4 decades, I can tell you that, the difference between the practice of foreign policy in the last 12 years and what was before has been a very stark contrast. It came as something as of an immense sort of transition for those of us who were in the diplomatic field at that time. When Prime Minister Modi entered the scene, diplomacy changed in a way that India has never seen and will never see again. And for that matter, I think the sort of, as you say, being on the high table sort of achievements that we were able to work out with Prime Minister Modi at the helm, directing foreign policy, being a part of that process himself, I think has been a remarkable transition, not only in India, but in global foreign policy, viewpoints. But you mentioned the last 1.5 years, and you're right in saying that the recent contemporary geopolitics is very different. We have entered a new era of, I would say, volatility and uncertainty in the geopolitical arena. And this calls for a slightly changed, I would say, diplomatic track. And certainly that is also evident in some of the ways in which our diplomacy under Prime Minister Modi has responded. For example, in terms of energy security, what has happened in West Asia has impacted very deeply in our region, our country. Supply chains have been disrupted, the cost of fuel has shot up, but the impact on the common man in India has been very, very gradual and calibrated. In stark contrast to countries around us and countries across the world, including energy producers like the United States and the UAE, India has managed to absorb these shocks in a manner that countries have never seen. And that calls for leadership, that calls for political adroitness, that calls for diplomatic maneuvering. And I think we have managed in the diplomatic arena to minimize the shocks of the West Asia conflict in a manner that is unprecedented and I think is very, very noteworthy.
Could we have done more is a question many are asking. As we see escalations since last night, we have friends on Iran, Israel, and the United States sides. Could we have balanced things better? Because there's always, this question that is raised in the public domain that we have antagonized some in our urgency of being in a team of the others. Have we actually compromised some of India's interests?
You would have seen that Prime Minister Modi has spoken to all leaders involved in this West Asia situation. He's spoken to President Trump at least 2 or 3 times. He's spoken to the Gulf leadership. He's spoken to the President of Iran. He's spoken to Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel. The Foreign Minister, External Affairs Minister has been very, very active in speaking to all of his counterparts. I think we have been very engaged on this issue in protecting the interests of our country and our people, but also in encouraging de-escalation of the conflict, encouraging peace through dialogue and diplomacy. This is a conflict that has to find its equilibrium, and perhaps that equilibrium has not yet been achieved. But I think it's important for India to be engaged the way we are. It's important for us to constantly be in touch with our interlocutors. And I think this is something that's very much on. As I said, I mean, beyond that, you have to leave it to the protagonists. What you can do is be engaged with them to encourage what all of us want is basically an end to this conflict, end to conflicts all over the world. You want, to restore a regime of stability, and people want normalcy in their lives. They want, they don't want inflation to be something that they have to deal with. They don't want shortages. And this is something the government has tried very hard to achieve, and I think has been largely successful in doing that. As we go along, I think we have to prepare for a world of uncertainty and volatility. This is my point I made at the beginning. I continue to make it that, our diplomacy has to be adroit, has to be nimble, has to respond quickly to changing situations, and we have to continue to pursue Prime Minister Modi's policy of multi-alignment, in the spirit of nation first and a proactive diplomacy.
As a former ambassador to the United States, how do you look at President Trump and the manner in which India's layers of relationship with US have uncovered over the last 2 years? The tariff wars that existed since then, Operation Sindoor commentary that has taken place, and now this whole situation of Pakistan getting a kind of a central role in trying to negotiate peace between Iran and the United States. How do you look at this unfolding?
I think as a country that has a civilizational past, we have to look at relationships, particularly with our principal partners, over a medium to long-term period. Our relationship with the United States is based on shared values and principles. We have a very comprehensive, multifaceted partnership which cuts across the board. It's not just a single area. It is not just defense and security. It is trade, investments, technology, people-to-people contacts. And I think that is something that has continued and that will remain. There are ups and downs in the relationship, but I think what is important is that there is continues to be an excellent understanding and rapport between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump. The other day, I was at the US Embassy's 250th anniversary celebrations. Secretary Marco Rubio was there as well, and when Ambassador Gore, in his address, fished out his phone and said, here's President Trump who wants to speak to the audience. And he put him on the speakerphone. And President Trump gave a message in which he mentioned 3 times. He said, please convey my very best to my very good friend, Prime Minister Modi, for whom I have a lot of respect and whose friendship I greatly value. So from that perspective, if you look at it, I think this is something that endures. This is important that we maintain that relationship at the highest levels. There are ups and downs. There are aberrations. As Secretary Marco Rubio said, some of those are tactical. They're not strategic. The relationship with India is strategic. It is long-term. It is based on values and principles, as I said, shared values and principles. And that will continue irrespective of what we have. So we have to look at the larger picture. We have to continue in a manner that is in the best interests of our country. And I think the fact that today we are close to concluding the free trade agreement on what I can see are circumstances which are quite favorable in our interest vis-a-vis our competitors, it's a good sign. I think this is something that will close a chapter in that trade aspect of the relationship which has dodged situations.
So 2 questions. Number one, if you say that we have such a great relationship with the United States, has it been at the cost of our long-standing friends like Russia, like Iran, our engagement with China? Have we paid a price for putting United States on top of these other powers, which was in our foreign policy the balancing factor?
I think what is remarkable in today's foreign policy, India's foreign policy, is that we have practiced multi-alignment right from the beginning. In 2014, when Prime Minister Modi took office, what did he do? He invited all the leaders of South Asia for that inauguration, even the Prime Minister of Pakistan. It's just that Pakistan did not change its policy of using terrorism as an instrument against India. But he did give them the opportunity. We did have an inclusive foreign policy. We have reached out to all of our friends and partners, whether it's the United States, it's Europe, it is China, Russia, the Gulf states. I think our partners are cut across ideological and regional lines, and that is what is important. We have a close relationship with Russia. President Putin just recently said that the Indian economy was a very strong one, that India had the sort of resilience that few states could match. At the same time, I think we are in the process of engaging with China in normalizing relationships. We had a situation in 2020 on our border, but both countries want to ensure that conflict is not a part of our bilateral scene, and I think we are working to get back into what should be mutually beneficial for both the countries. And with Iran, we have a civilizational connect. We have had a good understanding with Iran to use the Chabar port to access Central Asia and Afghanistan, and we continue to be in touch, with the government of Iran. And I think, as I said, I mean, this is not a zero-sum game. What we are working on is a win-win policy, a foreign policy that can bring mutual benefit to all of our partners. We work on the basis of both sides, gaining. And I think this is something that has brought us very useful dividends. It's been part of Prime Minister Modi's philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. That has been our overriding policy in handling foreign affairs. We have reached out to all concerned, and we have good relations with all concerned. But there are challenges. Let us face it. I mean, as I said, the geopolitical situation is rife with tension and volatility. You never know where the next conflict will come and which way. We ourselves, I think, are facing our own challenges like in any other country. But we are particularly, I think, in a position where we are a great success. You see, countries are all watching that we are the fastest growing large economy in the world. Today, we have made such huge strides in the last in a decade or so in removing poverty as a part of our country's narrative, in taking our economy forward from the 11th largest to the 4th largest, in bringing digital public infrastructure, in providing people with houses, free rations. I think this is something that no country has achieved, but this has not gone unnoticed. And I think there are elements which are inimical to our interests and will work to unbalance us in many ways, including through the use of the digital media, which we have been, the Jan Dhan Aadhaar has been so successful in ensuring that people across our country, especially younger people, have access to the cheapest internet telephony in the world, smartphones, and that has enabled them to bridge the digital divide, but has also created an opportunity for forces inimical to us. I'm not using the word countries, I'm using the word forces inimical to us to try and destabilize our country, to make sure that our rate of growth, our achievements, the progress that the people of India are recording is marred. Because they don't want to see a successful, strong India straddle the global stage. And this is something we have to be very, very cautious about.
Who are these forces?
Very, very
Mr. Harsh Shringla, you are somebody who does straight talk. I want to ask you, has the government identified these inimical forces?
So look, I cannot speak for the government, but my sense is that, there are people who are openly funding, interests that are working against us. You have the entire left liberal establishment, with George Soros identified as the figurehead of that, is vast funding, to groups across the board that are, opposed to some of the steps that we are taking in a positive manner in the interest of our people, is something that, you create this level of disquiet, you create this level of uneasiness, you use the social media to exaggerate situations, and you work on the vulnerabilities of sections of people. And that is what has been the policy. And you wait for the opportunity to try and bring this out. You don't create your opportunity, you wait for an opportunity. We have seen it in Sri Lanka, we've seen it in Bangladesh, we've seen it in Nepal, we've seen it in other parts of the world. And I think this is something that will not succeed in our country, for the simple reason that we are a large country, we have strong leadership, we have people who are committed to our democratic forces in the way we work. And I think most importantly, we have the achievements and a continued policy of achievement that nobody can take away from us. But having said that, we should be aware of these forces that work. And I've just given you one example. There could be others that are working against our interests. I think we as a nation, as a people, should be aware of that, and we should be vigilant in countering that wherever possible, because we cannot afford to go back into a state of a destabilized, weak, divided country. We have seen that in the past. The people of India have voted decisively to have a firm, strong, reliable, stable government. This is what we have now, and we must ensure that that is the path we take as we move towards a Viksit Bharat, which is the dream of every Indian, especially our youth.
Mr. Shringla, Secretary Rubio, when he was in India, spoke about $500 billion of Indian investment in the United States. We see within India investments petering off or rather cold at the moment, given the global geopolitical situation. Is this America trying to browbeat India when they say this is going to happen when the free trade agreement is still to be formalized?
So I'm not privy to the details, but my own understanding of what Secretary Rubio had said is that the basket of exchanges between India and the United States, whether it is trade, whether it is imports, whether it is investments, whether it is technology transfers, will expand significantly. We are not talking about today, we're talking about the next 5 years, to reach a target of $500 billion. And I think investments are also two-way investments. American investments come into India, but India's investments are also there in the United States. That's also very important. You already have some major groups that have announced investments in the US. But our exchanges, and we have already got, both countries have a stated objective of seeing trade increase to $500 billion. So our exports to the United States will increase exponentially after this trade agreement. US exports to India will also increase. Our trade will grow, and with that growth will come opportunities in technology, in investments. And I would say that we have a fair chance that our I would say economic exchanges will increase to such an extent that over the next 5 years or so, we would have a very significant basket of economic exchanges.
In the end, Mr. Shringla, after the escalations of last night, are you a worried man, or do you think this will settle anytime soon? Because markets are plunging, fuel prices once again spiraling upwards, and tensions increasing after last night's escalations. Do you have a crystal ball to see what the next few weeks have in store?
So as I said, we would all like to see de-escalation and end to that conflict, and certainly the freeing up of the Straits of Hormuz, which will allow normal passage of energy from the Gulf states to the rest of the world, including India. But I think we should prepare for a medium term at least, in terms of how this conflict would go and the sort of instability that we would see from the West Asia region. And I think it will only be this is my own sense that it would take a little time more for situation to stabilize and for oil prices to also stabilize. I would look at the fourth quarter of the year for oil prices to come to a level that is manageable, and 2027 where oil prices could come down to as low as $60 a barrel. It is now over $100 a barrel. So, I mean, oil prices is what is important because that determines the bottom line.
Yes.
And I think if the way the conflict is going with its ups and downs, it will take a little more time to find, as I said, the equilibrium in this conflict. Perhaps we are not yet there. But when we are there, I think we will find that situation will settle down, and we would have a much greater sense of normalcy. But until such time, we need to prepare, which is why Prime Minister Modi addressed the public. He said that we need to take austerity measures. We need to take it not just as a nation, but as a people. And we need to do what it takes to transition towards a greener economy. I mean, as a country that imports over 80% of its energy, by way of fossil fuels, we need to move towards what resource we have. We have solar energy, we have wind energy, we have hydro energy, and we can develop nuclear energy. So we need to transition towards the greener energy, and we need our country to be far less reliant on the import of fossil fuels than we are doing now. And that policy, I think, is going the right way.
Well, Mr. Harsh Shringla, thank you very much for joining me. The man, ladies and gentlemen, who brought G20 and organized G20 in a very successful manner, Harsh Shringla, with us here on Times Now. Thank you very much, sir. And 12 years, landmark moment in India's economic and foreign policy growth. With that, we'll slip into a short break. Much more news on the other side.